Hi guys, how are you doing? So, as you may or may not know, America has different cultural norms that we do as Brits. I'm just your average, typical British Geordie guy. Anyway, I came upon this video. It is entitled 25 American Cultural Norms and Customs, and it's by a YouTube channel called Wonder in English Courtney. As you know, I'm always um, interested in sort of different cultural norms and customs because I do travel a lot, and if you do one of these things wrong, I suppose it's kind of a wrong thing to do. It's kind of like, ooh, you're in the wrong. But anyway, let's proceed with the video. And yeah, I'm really fascinated to know what the cultural norms are in America.
Hey guys, it's Courtney back from Wonder in English from wonderinenglish.com, and I'm here to give you guys an interesting lesson about 25 cultural norms in the United States. So, what do I mean by cultural norm? Well, I mean things that Americans do.
I should note that we British tend to apologise a lot, and we ask those if they're all right, which apparently is not a normal thing in America. But yeah,
Probably a little bit weird in other countries. I've traveled a lot, so I have a good idea of what's normal and also what doesn't really happen in other countries, at least not as much as it does here in the United States. So let's get started. So, the first few norms that I have for you guys are actually involved in restaurants and eating out. I'm sure the most common one that you guys know is tipping.
yes, tipping. Now, 3 years ago, I was in New York, and the whole time I was there for 6 days, and I didn't pay a single thing with cash. It was all done by card. And thankfully, it's totaled for you on the bill. So the worst thing you can do is fret about how much tip you've got to provide. And in my experience, it was on the receipt, which was a massive help for me because we don't tip in the UK. We have VAT, which is added on to food, hardware, other products when we buy something. And that is like a little tax we got to pay. So in America, people have very low wages, and therefore people have to tip. That tip is like a jar full of cash, essentially, that goes towards the staff that work there. They get a little slice of that to help them with costs of everything. But yeah, tipping is a big thing in America, and I didn't have to worry about how much tip to leave because it was on the receipt.
So, here in the United States, I think waitresses and waiters get paid only a few dollars an hour. Normally, minimum wage is at least $8 an hour here, but waitresses can get like $3 an hour, something crazy low. In order to make up for this, people who go to restaurants will tip the waiter. A normal range to tip is 15 to 20%. I like to always tip 20% because the person needs money so that they can eat and live. Another thing that we like to do in the United States is separate checks. So when the bill comes, sometimes in Europe, everyone pays together. And it doesn't really matter if you're on a budget. It doesn't matter if you're trying to save money. Because if somebody else in your group actually has a much more expensive meal, you have to pay the same amount as everyone else. Everything is.
That would seem a lot fairer. If someone has a more expensive meal than you, then they don't pay the equal amount. Um, I don't think we do this in the UK, but we do. We do sort of do that. we do sort of pay our fair share of the bill, which is manners, it's custom. But this terminology that she's using, it's not a British thing. We just pay. If we're in a group of people together in a restaurant, we all just pay our own meals, what we've ordered. So this is actually a good idea. It's not fair for everyone to pay equal because some people might buy, you know, a dessert or a more expensive meal than the other person. So it's really, really fair to do it that way.
into one check and you all split it equally in that group. However, in the United States, a lot of times, even with a big group of people, everyone will pay for their own meals. Sometimes couples pay for each other. That's a different story. Normally, either one person will pay or a few people will pay for each other, but it's not common for people to really just split it down the middle. People will normally only want to pay for what they had and what they ate. Another thing at restaurants is that we like to give lots of ice and that we offer free refills.
This is not a thing in the UK. When I was in Paris, you always get either free bread or water. Um, I'm guessing in some places they do this because I think it's Nando's. You pay for your meal, you pay for the drink that you want to pay for, but you get free refills and lots of ice. So it's not common in the UK, but it is a thing in some places.
So we normally have really big glass sizes, and then on top of that, if you drink all of it, we'll give you a refill for free. But that's not something that we do with alcoholic drinks, not normally anyway. But
Yes, alcohol is exempt. It doesn't apply. This only applies to soft drinks mostly.
this gives an opportunity for people to gain a ton of weight because people oftentimes drink sodas, which have tons of sugar. And then you can keep refilling that soda one after another. And then people might drink way too much, too many calories. Another thing that can help people gain weight is the fact that our portion sizes, the food.
Yes, large portion sizes. Now, this is the thing I discovered when I was in New York. I had a McDonald's there. I had a variety of different foods, and it was always the portions were always huge. The pizzas were huge as well, and yeah, it's a very um, stereotypical thing to have large portions in America. We in the UK, in European areas, are more aware of the downfalls of this because we do have a weight pandemic in Europe where people are gaining weight and portion sizes are very important because it has the necessary calories, necessary nutrients, but we don't really do large portions in the UK. But I was surprised to see how big the portions were in America because I could not eat the full thing there. I was stuffed after a few um, spoonfuls, I thought, how do Americans, how can they eat all this stuff? Um, like I say, we in the UK and Europe, we've become accustomed to portion sizes, smaller portion sizes, because in the long run, it does have negative impacts on your health.
Size in the United States is massive. So this is another cultural norm. We like to have quantity.
And I'm guessing in America, that's why they do doggy bags. People can take their food home with them, and I think we have that here in UK as well. We've got a thing as such thing as doggy bags where you can take your food home with you. Because again, I hate wasting food. I hate throwing food away that could be used later on. So having doggy bags is a good idea.
Quantity, not always over quality, meaning that we like more, not better. That's not always true, but we definitely like more always. Especially states like Texas, where they say everything is bigger in Texas. Something else that we do is we ask for all of our leftovers to go. So because we have such big portions,
Yep, doggy bags. Yeah. Again, these are very essential because we hate wasting food. In America, where the portions are bigger, you will need to take your food with you away at some point. I know that I have.
a lot of times, if you're a small person, you can't eat all of that food. So, what happens to it? Well, we don't want to waste it. So, we take that leftover food home with us. So, we ask to doggy bag it or a to go box. So, this is super common in the United States. You go out to eat and then you have food for the next day. So, really, when you pay for a meal out, it's like you're paying for two meals. Another norm that I never noticed that someone actually told me about and I agree with is that we like to eat food on the go. So we will go through a drive-through in our car and we'll eat food in the car. Or if you're in a big city, maybe you'll eat a sandwich while you're walking down the street.
Yeah, this is common in the UK as well. We have McDonald's and you can take out your food. Normally, if you sit in, they will charge you VAT to sit indoors for some reason. But to take it out, um, you get a bag. You sit on a park bench and you eat your food. That's common now in the UK. Um, I personally don't like people watching me eat, but people have fast lives today and haven't got time to sit in a restaurant and spend half an hour eating a meal. So this is very common in the UK.
In other cultures, this is very strange because food is honored and you go home for an hour during your workday and maybe you even eat with family and friends. In the United States, it's really normal to eat at your desk. It's also equally normal to eat while you're walking. It's not that strange. So,
Which is actually very hard to do, I must admit, because when you've got one bag full of burgers and chips and the other hand is consumed with something else, it's hard to. I don't know. I find it hard to eat on the go because you're rushing down your food as well, which isn't healthy for you. But you got a fast paced life, then why not?
the honor of eating food, the honor of that practice is not really there. We love food, but we don't necessarily always make it an event, especially for meals.
I mean, as kids, we would always sit down at the table in the evening time and have our food with our mother and father and relatives, that sort of thing. But as the years have gone by, that's become less and less, unfortunately. People have got things going on, and you know the family's not as close knit as it once was back when I was a kid. But having food at the table was always a matter of well, eating of course, but also communication with your parents on what you did at school, what you did for the day, that sort of thing. That was always the sort of go-to to sit down, have a meal, and discuss your day. You know, but today it's not really. Everyone's got their own devices, their own rooms, essentially. So it's becoming a thing of the past, unfortunately.
And breakfast, which are not as important and are normally, eaten on the go because we're so busy. Talking about being busy, we are really overworked here sometimes. Not everybody, but some of us here have really hectic schedules and are always running around. And sometimes we don't really have the time to go grocery shopping or to cook for ourselves. So, besides eating out, something that we do is we like food box services. So each week they will deliver a
Well, I don't do this personally. I actually go to the shop to get my food. But in the past, I have used services that do this, and they tend to charge you more money for food that you didn't even want in the first place. I remember using HelloFresh, and one day I got a parcel of food that I didn't order, but the company charged me anyway, so I had to phone them and complain. I says, I didn't order this lot of food. They were like, too bad. It's one of those automated things that they do, and I didn't order any more of them at all. I thought that was it. I'm done with that sort of thing. I'll go to the shop myself and buy the food myself, which suits me. For families that are busy, it may suit them to go this route. But for me personally, I love going to the shops and checking out the produce, um, what they got on sale, the bread, the fruit, the veg, whatever they got. It's it's something I do every single month and I enjoy it.
big box of a ton of ingredients, and it's all portioned out, and the recipe is right there, and all you have to do is cook that meal right then. So every week you're
I
basically
mean, it is useful. I did use HelloFresh and they were useful, but I didn't have control of what they were sending me. And I got into sort of argument with them in the end. I says, I didn't order this food. I actually refused the delivery, but they're still charging me, and I was not happy with that.
your groceries delivered to your house but already in recipe form. So it's a really convenient way to cook from home and eat fresh food, but not have to go out and do the grocery shopping and plan all the recipes yourself. So while I was living outside of the United States, something that I thoroughly enjoyed was the fact that tax is included when you're making a purchase in with anything outside of the US. So in Europe, when I saw that this
Like I say, when we buy things here in the UK, there's always a tax of some kind. Here it's called VAT, and that way we don't pay tips. We just we pay what we want to buy, and we also are charged VAT, which is like a service charge of sorts. When we buy takeaways online, it's the same principle. We get VAT plus a service charge on top. But when I was in New York, I was always fretting, thinking, oh, how much tip do I leave? Oh, but it was on my receipt and I paid by card, which was much easier than bringing out your wallet, counting the notes and put it on the table. You just paid it on your card. That was it. A lot easier.
was $25 at the store, I knew it would be $25. Well, not dollars, but maybe euros. In the United States, tax is not included. So the tax you have to estimate in your head when you're going to check out to make sure you have enough money to pay for something. It's really silly. So that $25 mouse will have maybe 7 cents for every dollar as tax. So you have to calculate 7.
So why does America have to do the same for restaurants or bars? Because you've got to leave a tip in those places. So if the stores in America are adding tax to the receipts, why can't they do that as well? Because it would save a lot of aggro for the customers to calculate how much tip to leave. Because it did consume a lot of my worries when I went to America. Because it's a big thing over there. If you don't tip, you're classed as being rude. I didn't want that to happen. But again, America. I mean, Europe and us as well. We are the European Union. The countries are very efficient in that regard. And if you ever travel to Europe or England, there's no tips, which for you guys is probably a massive relief.
Sense depending on the state that you're in. Tax differs by state. Then you have to multiply that by 25 and come up with a rough estimate of how much you think it's going to cost when you go to buy it. So it's really silly. I heard that we did this so that people have an idea of how much the product cost versus how much is going to tax. But honestly, I don't think people care, and I think it would be more useful.
You just add it to the receipt and pay by card. It's a lot easier. Like I say, in New York, they did that. It was a massive relief for me. I thought, phew, it's on the receipt. Don't have to calculate it in my head. I just pay it on my card and then leave. Done.
Include the tax in the final price so that people know how much something is rather than how much is going to tax. Another thing that we do that's come up a lot through my work is we write the date a little bit different than the rest of the world. So we like to write the month, then the day.
I think this is more efficient. I do the same thing when writing on Facebook, for example. I put the month first, then the day, then the year. Because the first thing I acknowledge is the month of that year, then the day, then the year. We do it differently here in the UK. I have no idea why, but I guess we're different.
Year, whereas other cultures like to write the day first because that's the thing that's changing more often. That makes a lot of sense. And for whatever reason, we just like
Wait. So Japan does the year first, then the month, then the day. Wow, that's bizarre. That is really bizarre. I think America's got it right. The month, the day, then the year. Yeah.
changing more often. That makes a lot of sense. And for whatever reason, we just like to do things differently when it comes to numbers. We have different systems. We use feet instead of the metric system. And you know what?
Actually, I prefer the imperial system. Um, I think that applies to when you say how far you are in feet and miles. When you go to Europe, it's more like kilometers, and I have absolutely no idea how to correlate that with feet and miles because miles is just, oh, you're 3 miles away from this location. It's far easier that way. But again, um, America, Europe, they're different from us.
For us, but it's a little bit strange to be completely out of sync with the rest of the world. So I wouldn't mind if we switched over to a metric system. One thing that comes up when I'm talking to foreigners is they'll ask me, wait, so do Americans really have prom? Or are colleges really like that? Are parties at colleges really like that? Do you guys actually drink out of those red solo cups? And the answer to that is all of that is yes. All of that is true. So the
But we don't. We have proms usually in the last year of school, which is year 11. Yeah, year 11. Because I had a prom night in my school. It wasn't as outrageous as what Americans get up to, but it was very formal, very fancy, very nice food, disco, that sort of thing. Um, but if you watch American Pie, you'll see how outrageous college is, parties are, Um, but in the UK, we don't have that sort of thing. We haven't got the weather to do that. It's always raining here, so we don't really have outdoor parties here. We've got indoor parties, we've got nightclubs, but apart from that, nothing like the American versions we see on TV.
can be a little bit exaggerated, but for the most part, it's pretty accurate. And yes, we do drink out of the red solo cups. For whatever reason, whenever we have a party and we're drinking alcohol, we use these specific cups. I don't know why. We just do that. And so they've become affiliated.
But we use glasses, actual glasses. There are some occasions in some places in the UK where you actually do drink out of plastic cups, It's happened to me. I've been in town with my friends and we're drinking out of plastic cups, but most of all, we just drink out of glass pint glasses. But this red soda cup thing is very popular in American uh, TV shows for some reason.
with drinks that you mix yourself, especially alcoholic drinks. The 11th norm is that we're very individualistic and we like to have a lot of personal space. So people are very independent. They like to be their own person and reliant on themselves. So, for example, at 18, we'll normally move out of our parents' home and go to college. So it's not super normal to be living at your home when you're older. Whereas in European countries and in places like South and Central America and even North America, like Mexico, it is very normal to live at home, even if you're 30 years old. Whereas in the United States,
Yeah, if you're 30 years old and living with your parents, in this day and age, it is normal. Um, I moved out of my grandmother's house when I was 38. I've been there for 20 years. Um, but yeah, I think with Gen Zs, it's becoming more popular for them to stay with their parents much longer than we did in our generation. Um, but I went to university. I moved out to go to university because I wanted the full experience. Um, in hindsight, I would have preferred to stay with my parents because I had to pay rent, I had to pay all the bills as you would expect. But it was an experience I would never ever forget. It was a time of great independence, and I loved living on my own, fending for myself, that sort of thing. But in America, it is a normal thing for you to move out to go to college, which I think is great.
I'm 25 right now and I moved back home, and it's honestly a little bit weird for this culture. It's a little bit strange. Not that people don't do it, but it's just not the norm. And again, we really like to have personal space. So if someone is standing close to me, that would honestly make
This wasn't a thing in the UK until COVID happened. Um, but again, if someone's standing close to you, you will be thinking, oh, personal space. Um, but it's not really been a thing in the UK in the last 25 years or so. But if you watch American movies, you will notice people saying, personal space, personal space. So anyway,
a little bit uncomfortable. I noticed that when I was in Spain, there was less personal space, and that definitely took some getting used to. People just felt very comfortable being.
yeah, there's not so much a personal space thing when it comes to to Europe and the UK. We just I don't know what it is. We just don't really value personal space as much as Americans do. Um, I've got issues with that sort of thing when people are too close to me. And what I will say to them, "Can you back up a bit, give me some more space, please." Um, but yeah, it's not really a thing in Europe and in the UK.
To you and touching you a little bit more than I was used to. But I kind of enjoyed it after a while. I think it's something that you can adapt to. So the next one I've already mentioned, and that's the fact that we move out when we're 18 years old. And
So my sister moved out when she was 20, I think. Um, but I moved out when I was 38. But between the last sort of 25 years before that, I did move out twice, I believe, to go to college, to go to university. And I don't know why we do. We're just more comfortable living with our parents. I mean, it's nice to have all the bills paid for. And once you do move out, you got all those things to fret about. I do personally when I'm every month. I've got a budget for things, but I never heard about this thing in America where at 18 you got to move out. Never heard of it. Unless you go to college, of course. That's a common thing. But anyway, guys, that is 25 American cultural norms and customs by a YouTuber called Wonder in English Courtney. Great video. I would highly recommend you check it out, give it a like, and yeah, it's very interesting to compare and contrast different cultures that we have in the UK and those in America. It's one of those things where you go to a place and you sort of, I wouldn't say shocked, but it does sort of just sort of wonder, the way you behave, the way you say certain things, it can be misinterpreted. Um, and again, we've got a different vocabulary than America. Certain words that we say that aren't said in America, that sort of thing. But anyway, that was a great video. Do watch it and like it and share it. Thanks for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next one.